The rebellion took off like a rocket, dazzled and then fizzled out like a damp squib. Instead of marching in triumph to Moscow, the Wagner mercenaries are heading back to the barracks. Their loudmouthed leader, Yevgeny Prigozhin, has been exiled to Belarus. His life and money is safe, but his ambitions stand crushed. An unprecedented and almost unbelievable challenge to Vladimir Putin's steel grip rule over Russia for more than 2 decades has now ended. But is this also the end of the story? Putin may have survived for now, but has his credibility been irretrievably bruised or even irreparably damaged? And just what price will Vladimir Putin have to pay for letting Prigozhin get away? And will this price include reverses in the war with Ukraine? The man who brokered the deal that stopped Yevgeny Prigozhin literally in his tracks on Saturday evening was the president of Belarus, Alexander Lukashenko. Now, we do not know yet all the details, but the deal was effective is what we know. The Wagner troops retreated, and if they had not, by the way, the 25,000 men would have been drowned in one of the greatest bloodbaths of this century as Russia turned its air power on the infantry. And in return, the Wagner Group chief will not face trial, which would have ended in execution. This statement was issued by Lukashenko's office after his meeting with Prigozhin, the private chef turned warlord. It said, and I'm quoting, "The sides agreed that it is unacceptable to start a bloodbath in Russia's territory." Yevgeny Prigozhin accepted Alexander Lukashenko's proposal on stopping the advance of Wagner's armed units in Russia's territory and on further steps meant to de-escalate the tensions. And just hours later, the Wagner chief was seen leaving his military headquarters in Rostov-on-Don. But here's the unusual part. Scores of people surrounded his convoy, treating him like a hero. They were seen clicking selfies and shaking his hands. And soon enough, his fighters also started pulling out of the city. Where did they go, you are wondering? Prigozhin says he has asked them to return to the battlefield as he himself moved towards Belarus. And what will he be doing there? Also, will he really not be charged? Will Putin really let the man get away after embarrassing him to this extent? And what now are Putin's options? Have a look at this report from the Moscow Times. It says criminal charges against the Wagner leader have still not been dropped. Russia's Federal Security Service, or FSB, is still conducting its investigation. By the way, the report says it is premature to reach a decision about the investigation's future. Likewise, the future of his fighters remains uncertain. There are at least 25,000 of them who took part in this mutiny, and some of them have gone back to Ukraine. Some have left with Prigozhin for Belarus, and some are being offered contracts directly with the Russian military. Just to put this simply, the Wagner Group looks dissolved as of now. But this does not make for good optics. You challenge the Kremlin in the middle of a war, and then you are given a chance to leave without punishment for the biggest crime in military code book, and that's the mutiny. Is this evidence that Putin has become weak, that he has become yesterday's man? Well, that is what his enemies assume, or at least hope for. Have a look at these visuals. These are locals in Rostov-on-Don chanting the Wagner Group's name and cheering for the mercenaries. And some of them were even seen thanking them and asking them to take care of themselves. You have to watch this. And that's not all. When asked about Wagner's actions, some Russians did not even hesitate in saying that Russia is indeed facing internal problems. Problems that the people can no longer tolerate. Listen into a few voices.
There are very serious problems in the country and they need to be solved. People who can no longer tolerate it, they resort to such radical methods as Prigozhin.
It resolved quietly enough, peacefully enough. But of course, it would have been better if it did not come to this situation. In my opinion, if it was possible to have troops, not Russian troops, but a private military company march into the city and to seize several facilities, there's something that should be reconsidered.
My point is simple. The Wagner chief's actions may have sowed seeds of dissent in the minds of many Russians. Did the Wagner chief strike a nerve of serious discontent that could encourage civilian protests? The West is, with predictable delight, describing this as the beginning of the end of the man who has confronted them for 2 decades. And the NATO chief saying that it shows the scale of the Kremlin's strategic mistake in waging the war on Ukraine. The French President Emmanuel Macron saying it shows divisions within the Russian camp. And what about the President of Ukraine? Volodymyr Zelensky is taking swipes at Vladimir Putin, of course. He says the mutiny shows how the bosses of Russia do not actually control anything. Not just that, he added that Prigozhin's actions have left Putin really scared.
The man from the Kremlin is obviously very afraid and probably hiding somewhere, not showing himself. I am sure that he is no longer in Moscow. He called somewhere and asked something. He knows what he is afraid of because he himself created this threat.
But let's just cut to reality, not the claims. Has this really affected the course of this war? Ukraine asserts that its counteroffensive will continue. It says that political strife within the enemy camps is great news, but their focus remains what it was previously. That's pushing the Russians back to Russia. However, they add that this is the big point, that this mutiny will not shorten the war or significantly increase Ukraine's chances of victory. Why is that? Because the battle is with the Russian regular army, and that has not crumbled. The reason for the Wagner mutiny was that Putin had been moving away from the irresponsible warlord that he created. Moscow believes that Western intelligence was able to turn the Wagner chief into its stooge. And it must now retrieve its credibility from the debris of the mutiny. And realists now believe that Putin will have to escalate the war in order to make decisive gains, that the violence and the devastation could intensify. All wars have unpredictable consequences, and we are at a turning point in the Ukraine war. But how it will turn out to be will be evident only in the days and weeks ahead. WION now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the updates on the move.